Welcome back. This week in sports was, well, it was a roller coaster. We're talking about everything from crushing injuries and a huge streak-snapping showdown to a moment of pure chaos for one of the biggest stars on the planet and an underdog story that you just have to hear to believe. All right, let's jump right in. It's a fascinating question, isn't it? Because an athlete's entire story can pivot in just a handful of days. It can be defined by a setback that's completely out of their control, by one single pressure-packed performance, or the moment a lifelong dream finally comes true. We're actually going to see all three of those play out right here. And first up, we have to talk about the tough side of the game, injuries. For some of the NBA's biggest names, the next few weeks or even longer are suddenly all about uncertainty, rehab, and the frustration of having to watch from the bench. Okay, so what we're looking at here are a few really different levels of bad news. For the 76ers, their MVP Joel Embiid is going to be out for at least 3 games. An MRI confirmed he's got a strained right oblique. But then you look at the Celtics, and man, they got hit with a double whammy. Baylor Scheierman, who's been huge for their defense, now has a fractured thumb. But the really big one here is Jayson Tatum. He's still recovering from that ruptured Achilles, and there is just no clear date for his return. And this quote from Tatum, wow, it just puts it all in perspective, doesn't it? You can literally feel the frustration, the grind of that long-term recovery. He's been really clear he won't come back until he's 100%. And this just shows you that mental battle that athletes fight far away from the cameras. It's that journey no one ever wants to be on. All right, so let's go from the frustration of the training room right back onto the court for the absolute high of a massive win. We are heading to LA for a showdown between the Clippers and the Pelicans, where both teams were desperate to flip their recent script. And that was the final, 137-117. Look, this wasn't just a win for the Clippers, it was a statement. This was total domination. They came out hot, got up by 11 after the first quarter, and just never let up. At one point, they were up by 26. For a team that really needed to stop the bleeding, this was exactly the medicine they needed. And this is why that game was so important. The Clippers were in a slump, having lost 3 straight. Meanwhile, the Pelicans were on fire, riding a 4-game win streak. So in one night, this single game completely reversed the momentum for both teams. A huge sigh of relief for LA and a brick wall for New Orleans. And when you look at the box score, a few things really jump out. You had Kawhi Leonard just being Kawhi, leading the way with a steady 23 points. Brook Lopez was absolutely unconscious from 3, hitting 4 of his 6 shots. But you gotta give a shout out to the Pelicans' Jeremiah Fears. Even in a loss, he went off for a career-high 28 points. So a tough team night for sure, but a huge individual performance for the young guy. Okay, so we've had the structure and the strategy of the NBA. Now let's pivot to a moment that was, well, the complete opposite. Because sometimes the biggest story has absolutely nothing to do with the final score, especially when Lionel Messi is involved. So picture this. It's a sold-out friendly match in Puerto Rico. Inter Miami is in town for a makeup game, and all 12,500 fans are there for one reason, right? To see the legend himself, Lionel Messi. And they definitely got a show, just maybe not the one they paid for. And this is where things just get absolutely wild. It's the 88th minute. A bunch of fans rush the field. One of them makes a beeline straight for Messi. A security guard comes flying in to make the tackle, but his momentum carries him right through the fan and into Messi, taking them both down in a heap. And Messi, he just kind of pops right back up, totally unharmed, with this look on his face like, well, that was weird. It was unbelievable. And here's the best part. Before he got accidentally tackled by his own security guard, Messi had already done what he came to do. He'd come on at halftime and scored the game-winning penalty to seal a 2-1 win for Inter Miami. So even in the middle of total chaos, he's still the guy who delivers. All right, for our final story, we're going from a global icon who literally can't escape the spotlight to a fighter who has spent his entire career grinding away in the shadows, all for one shot at glory. This is the incredible story of Konstantin Ursu. So this past Saturday, Ursu stepped into the ring against Owen Cooper, put on a dominant show, and won a unanimous decision to become the new British welterweight champion. But trust me, this win wasn't just about what happened that night. It was about a journey that is almost unbelievable. I mean, just listen to his own words. This wasn't some fancy training camp lifestyle. This was pure sacrifice. A 5-hour drive just to get some sparring in, sleeping in the car because a hotel was too expensive, then driving 5 hours back home to train again. And he did this 3 times a week, for years. Let's really put this into perspective.
For years, this guy was fighting on the small hall circuit. We're talking about places where you literally have to sell your own tickets to make sure your opponent gets paid. He was making almost no money. He slept in his car so often that he said sometimes the sparring itself was bad because he was in pain from how he slept. I mean, that is the definition of paying your dues.
And this quote right here, this tells you everything you need to know about him. This was never, ever about the money. In fact, for years, he said boxing cost him money. It was about legacy. It was about loving the sport so much that nothing else mattered. And now he's the British champion. He has that legacy forever. Which brings us all the way back to where we started. Remember Jayson Tatum calling his recovery a long journey? For him, the price of his legacy might be these quiet, lonely months of rehab. For Konstantin Ursu, it was years of sleeping in his car. One journey happens in the spotlight, the other in complete obscurity. But they both prove the same thing. A legacy isn't really defined by one game, or one win, or one chaotic moment. It's defined by the price you're willing to pay when absolutely no one is watching.